Hello, everyone, and welcome to Echo Route 65. This is a prequel visual novel to Echo, and I thought that since now we're at the point where there's only one route in Echo to cover, that I would go back and read this first. It helps to flesh out the characters a little bit more. You don't need to read this to fully understand Echo. It stands alone just fine, but, it's pretty good. I thought I would cover it. Now, I won't be covering every route in Route 65 because the routes are broadly similar in terms of plot, unlike in Echo proper, where each route is wildly different. So I'm only going to be doing one route. If you want to see the rest of the routes, I highly recommend you download this for yourself and give them all a read. Route 65 is totally free, much like Echo itself is, which is still totally bonkers to me. But having said all that, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? No, God. I can't deal with this right now. I stare at the screen, letting my phone vibrate until it stops. I'll try to make up an excuse that it was on silent later. I had been a cringing, flustered mess since this morning. School and my geometry test had kept me only slightly distracted. With the call as a reminder, I feel a welling sensation around my eyes and my vision blurs. I suck in my cheeks before exuding a shaky exhale. Nothing will ever be the same anymore. My parents won't see me as normal anymore. All because I was daft enough to try to rub one out on the computer before the bus came this morning. I thought they were at work. Mom is usually out by 5 and Dad by 6, but they took the day off on account that it's their anniversary. So not only did they catch me pants down, prick in hand, but also found out I was gay in one fell swoop of headphone-induced lack of spatial awareness. I heard Mom scream. I was so startled I jumped, my headphones coming unplugged from my laptop, blasting Fox Stallion porn on full blast. Just when my dad came running in. I remember Mom turned, went to her room, locked the door, and I didn't see her again before I left. Dad, meanwhile, was sort of laughing nervously before I took off to my bus stop, but I could tell from his face that this was beyond awkward for him. I couldn't bring myself to words. I just pulled up my shorts and ran to my bus stop. All throughout the day, the thought of coming home and having to face the shame was like being dunked in ice water. Each mile we travel closer to Echo increases that feeling of inevitable awfulness. I try to go over excuses in my head. I could maybe attempt to convince them that it was straight porn. Both of the guys in the video had pretty visible beard scruff, though. I rub my eyes. The thought of trying to figure out what all my folks saw on the screen makes me want to retch. Well, I could say it was a virus that took control of my browser window. And it was so startling a prospect that I didn't have time to fully put on my shorts. And the erection was unrelated. Fuck. I peek through my paws at my phone screen, the symbol for a missed voicemail having appeared up top. I grit my teeth in extreme apprehension, turning the screen off and shoving my phone back into my pocket. Taking a moment to recombobulate, I look around. The bus is pretty empty besides me, the bus driver, who has been trying to get the radio to work the whole ride, and Carl in the seat adjacent to me. Carl, as usual, has his earbuds in with his expensive handheld out, playing some Japanese tactics RPG. Usually we have at least Jeremy, Clint, Heather, Jasmine, and TJ with us, but not today. Not many kids who go to the school in Peyton live out in Echo. I'm pretty astonished the bus district expansion covered our town. The bus ride from Peyton to Echo usually takes about 45 minutes, though it feels much longer. Especially now. Ugh. The ram looks up from his game to the source of the music, slightly furrow-browed. Our bus driver grins back at him through the rear mirror in a self-satisfied fashion, her gummy Cheshire maw on full, yet brief display. Realizing that she's looking back at him, Carl grunts, hunching up his shoulders a bit. Karen, why? She lets out a brief chortle. Well, seeing as I only had you two along with me today, I thought I'd put on some tunes. Make your collar a little blue. Carl begrudgingly pauses his game, pulling out his earbuds and letting them hang over his horns. It was so weird seeing him like this. Around age 14, his horns developed a lot. He complained about headaches and neck strain constantly. He told me he had to see a chiropractor in a state over because his horns were so big, and his neck muscles hadn't developed enough to support them. Even now, a year later, he still sits with a sort of low, hunched posture. I'm plenty blue-collared, yeah? I live in Echo. She smirks again. Boy, I have seen the size of your manor. No, you ain't. Never would have expected a sort like you to be so pomp and yachty-blooded. Carl doesn't say anything. His emerald gaze shifts some to the seat in front of him. Karen takes a glove from her soda bottle with her free hand, the other steering us through an on-ramp onto the freeway. The spa day I would have on just 1 hour of your daddy's income. I'd feel bad for whoever works mani-pedi that shift. She holds up her calloused right hand, her claws rather stubbed, even for a fox's standard. When I'm not driving you squirts, I do road crew for public works. Ain't your average mom, eh? She gesticulates with a swirling motion as she speaks, then lets her hand hang limply on the steering wheel. Well, it might be the new average here soon enough. Feminism and all that. You two will learn all about it in college, I'm sure. What are you two going for, Major-wise? Both of us make no quick move to respond. Chase? I shift some in my feet, clearing my throat so that my voice doesn't crack. Well, I wanted to go into videography and film, but my parents weren't too fond of that. So, I guess journalism or communications? Ah. Karen responds so abruptly that it makes me wonder if I said something wrong. Well, my nephew got one of them communication degrees from North Mountain State. Oh? How'd that go? Ended up being a $60,000 piece of paper that earns him $13.25 an hour fixing old farts like us computers out of some big box establishment. Nerd Squad, I think they're called? Yeah, hell if I know. I'm still deciding, I guess. She waves dismissively. I look over at Carl, who looks like all he wants to do is go back to playing his game. What about you, Bighorns? Carl blinks some at the casual speciesism, then scratches the back of his neck. You just planning on going to work straight for Daddy right after you graduate? Mom, actually. I don't know yet. Carl looks pretty uneasy with this topic. He also seems pretty embarrassed at having said Mommy out loud. Were I in better spirits, I'd probably laugh. Everyone's good at something, Carl, and hopefully that's something you enjoy too. You're always quiet with your nose in that little device of yours playing games. Maybe that's your future career, something techie? Admittedly, Leo is usually the one who's most handy with fixing our tech stuff. Carl isn't even the best at video games. That title belongs to Jazz. Carl is quiet for a bit, tugging on the strings of his hoodie. I don't know. Looking out the window, I see the sun is setting as we get within 10 or so miles of Echo. We pass the old abandoned water park, which I heard closed shortly after the bypass was built and all its passerby traffic was lost. I think for a moment I see what looks like some figures in the drained pool, though when I try to squint, I don't see them anymore. You know, I was around when that place shut down. I startle some, not realizing I was being watched. Both times, actually. Once in the 60s, then again in the 80s when it reopened for a year. It was during the era of big government giving out big old water project instructions to the state for pennies, LA being the golden child. Our county, as you two squirts are aware, did not become the next Orange County. Spoilers, as my son Keith used to say. She lets out an amused grunt before stirring up some. A lot of folks lost their jobs. It was like a little Great Depression in the middle of Mormon land. Echo's been going to tits for generations, though. And not the good sort of tits, either. The real ugly ones. Like those that what's-her-name wields. Mrs. Tethers? Yeah, her. I'm taken off guard at that comment. Mrs. Tethers has a particularly nasty history teacher at PHS who is known for not being too keen on Vulpines. She does have a kind of lopsided hair. Anyway, it is a rap shame. By the time your kiddies are having kiddies themselves, this town will be a feast for termites. Well, maybe not the manor. I see Karen's silver eyes focus on Carl. The castle, we used to call it. She says this bit rather strangely, as if trying to remember something specific. Carl is staring out the window, avoiding Karen's stare. In the 2 years we've had her as a bus driver, she's never spoken this much. Most of the time she'd just be scolding Jeremy and Clint. I have this feeling she's been waiting for this opportunity to speak more personally with Carl for a while. As we get closer to Echo, we pass more abandoned places. Some are adorned with faded Art Deco stylings from the bygone modern era, whilst others are but rotting wood, from the Mormon settlement days. In my current situation, all these familiar architectural fadings seem to evoke is a pulsating sense of dread for what's to come. Carl, your family has been here for over a century. The way I see it, at least they could do is reinvest in what they capitalized on in the first place.
Can you just change the radio station?
Carl's horns are pressed up against the window, his tone low but his voice loud. Oh yeah? What do you want to set it to?
Anything but this.
Carl looks down at his handheld, fidgeting with stuff in the character screen but without the focus to keep actually playing. Fine. What do you want to listen to, Chase? I don't know. Nothing gets me jacked like some generic pop music. 98.1 FM should have that. What did you say? You want this but louder?
No.
No.
Chase, kill me. End my life. Maybe I'll respawn somewhere more peaceful.
This is good for you, Carl. You're getting blue-collared, albeit, the hard way.
If I wanted to get blue-collared the hard way, I'd borrow Jasmine's jean short shorts and stand assumingly around the motel.
Covering our ears and pressing our heads to the seats in front of us, we endure the hick musical cavalcade, as Jasmine deemed this station. Thank God, that was so loud in my ears. Glancing sidelong out the bus window, I see that we're less than a mile from home. My paw pads start to feel clammy and I clutch my knees tight. It's fortunate that Carl is currently occupied with burying his muzzle into the faux leather of the seat in front of him as I begin to tremble. Part of me actually wants him to see. I know it's just stalling for the inevitable, but I want to talk to someone, anyone, about all this. This is a small town, and whoever I speak to will know that I like guys, and I'll have to deal with them knowing that fact every day till college. If I go to college. I used to hate being so damn generic. Fucking Flynn whines about how boring I am all the time, but now, all I can see are folks looking at me, seeing me as that otter who likes it up the rear, not as generic Chase. God, that's what my parents will see me as too. The sort of deviant who lives in their home. I imagine them looking at the photos of me around the house now and wishing they could have that back. I've never really talked to my parents about relationships and sex stuff, and now I'm just shocking them with this whole new side of me. What an anniversary present I've given them. I look over and see Carl hunched over, his horns pushing into the seat, and his gaze focused blankly upon the screen of his handheld. Upon closer inspection, the screen is completely black, the device no longer on. It seems that he's not in the best of states either. I swallow, debating disturbing him. Carl might be my best friend, but we don't really have deep talks, especially since the leak incident. Maybe I could text someone? I slide my phone out of my pocket, staring at the black screen much like Carl is now. I realize when I get home, my parents are probably going to demand to see my phone and messages, so I'll have to remember to delete them. I try to imagine how each one of my friends would react, but this is honestly foreign ground, only alluded to in traded insults and jokes. Flynn especially. The lizard drops the word faggot in every other sentence as of late, though I think he just chooses it for maximum edginess. Jasmine, on the other hand, might be the most supportive of this sort of thing. However, she wasn't at school today. I eavesdropped Flynn mentioning something about issues with her parents and Jeremy to Leo, but I couldn't make out the specifics. I don't even know how Leo would react to any of this. He makes jokes about poofy stuff all the time, but I can tell there's some unease there. That leaves TJ. Carl described him once as the moral, gooey center of our sandwich of a group of friends. That being said, I'm not sure how much I can actually tell him. He's just barely crossing the puberty threshold right now. Plus the Christianity factor. I uncover one of my ears long enough to pull up my phone, my heart skipping a beat at the new voicemail notification. I quickly swipe over to my contacts. Leo always has a weird sort of paternal vibe going on with him. If someone in our group is feeling down, or about to make a stupid decision, he usually goes out of his way to set them straight. Jasmine says that this is largely due to the culture he comes from, the whole pack mentality thing. In truth though, Leo was one of the first friends I ever made, back when I was like 6. I'm sort of hoping time cuts through the stigma bullshit and he'll have an idea of what to do. My thumbpad hovers over his portrait picture in the messenger app. Alright, here goes nothing. So can I talk to you for a second? I wonder if I shouldn't have done punctuation or capitalization. Maybe try to sound a little more casual? Busy, but what? Shit. He doesn't have practice today, so I thought he'd be free. Managing text messaging with Leo is hard enough as it is. With him distracted, it'd be even worse. Looks like I can't do it through here. I think I should talk to you about it in person. I see. Okay. God, he always does this. 2 to 3 word responses. He's still probably hanging out with the other football folk outside school. Lucky bastard has his own truck now, so he mostly doesn't come home with us anymore. I find myself biting the inside of my cheek and quickly force myself to stop. Okay? I stare at my phone screen for a long while, and eventually come to the conclusion that this is a waste of time. He doesn't seem to be in any hurry to respond now. I don't want to fuck this up by badgering him with my whinging revelation that I apparently love cock, while he'd rather be doing anything else. As the familiar landmarks of the railway and the red rock of Echo Canyon come into view out the window, my restless anxiety returns. Steadying myself, I swipe back over to my contacts. Jasmine unfortunately doesn't have a cell phone. Her family struggles with money, so this sort of thing is one hell of a luxury, I guess. I'll have to check in on her at her place later. I'm about to slide my phone into my pocket when I feel it vibrate against the pads of my paws. I got Gorgonzola at the mini market in Peyton. Well, that's informative? I honestly have no idea what this message means. Instinctively, I try to respond with something jabby. I'm sorry, Flynn. I'm sure they have a cream for that. I don't usually ever text Flynn, mainly because he doesn't text back. So this is weird, I guess. It is a type of salad, you musky fuck. Oh. Why are you texting me about salad? Looking out the bus window, I can see that we're approaching Carl's stop. As the bus turns onto the neighborhood road, I scoot over some, speaking up to get Carl's attention. So, I'm gonna get off with you here, okay? Carl just continues staring at his blank screen for a second before blinking and looking back at me.
Are you sure? That might be pretty messy, and Karen watching might give me performance anxiety.
Carl stares deadpan at me. I rest my forehead into my paw and groan, though we end up snickering a bit. The bus comes to a stop. Carl, this is where you get off.
Chase wants to get off too.
The bus. You have a note from your folks? Shit. I look back to Carl and he gives me a look of understanding. He unslings his backpack from his shoulder, rifling through it. Carl looks up at me briefly, mouthing one word. Stall. I do. I make a motion of holding something up behind the seat. Carl seems to have found a pen and notepad and is scribbling hastily. So, Karen, you mentioned your son Keith? The name sounds familiar. Karen gives me a rather dubious look, her silver gaze eyeing me up. Well, I doubt you have recently. Keith's been gone for a good year or so now. Where did he go? Karen scratches the end of her muzzle, still eyeing me with the same searching expression. He's dead. Dead to me, at least. Oh. Sorry. Definitely not going to prod there. Carl currently looks as if he's trying to camouflage into his seat, slowly sliding down it. Sigh. The old fox lets out a huff that is half exasperated, half amused. She waves dismissively. You squirts gonna exit the bus or not? I got a big bowl of cinnamon chips and pineapple mango salsa waiting for me back home. I shift awkwardly in my seat. Out of the corner of my eye, something yellow flutters down by my feet. With haste, I bend down and snatch up the note, acting as nonchalant as possible. Carl's penmanship is actually pretty good. I give him a discreet, grateful look as he gets up and moves to the exit. I'm coming. Carl stops, looking back at me with that same deadpan as before. To the front of the bus. I think I hear Carl mutter, "That's quite some range," as he turns and continues offward. Carl hops off first, his hooves making an audible clop noise upon the aged asphalt. However, as I follow and move to hand my note to Karen, her calloused hand grasps my wrist instead of the note. I'm not that deaf and dumb, Kitty. I've been doing this job a long while. She relinquishes my wrist, the note fluttering to the ground. I can feel Carl staring nervously at us from the road. I appreciate your curiosity. Keith and I live down in Colville, so I doubt you'd know him. He made some seriously questionable decisions regarding his amorous pursuits. Things I could not abide by. She shifts some in her large driver's seat, the cadence of her voice changing some as she looks to the back of the bus. I saw you back there, puffy-eyed and trembling. Oh no. You afraid of something at home? I know how the people can be out here. I'm frozen, feeling the tips of my ears burn rosy at today's endless cavalcade of embarrassment. She pauses, bending down to pick up the dropped note before tossing it in the bus's trash bucket. Especially with kids. I'm not sure what she means by that, and definitely am not sure what to say. I look back at Carl. He's averting his gaze now, his paws deep in his hoodie pockets. Alright, I get it. Nobody trusts the hick bus driver to know what it's like to be a kid these days. Look, run along now. Sorry for, grabbing you. I'm used to them shits Jeremy and Clint doing that and getting me in trouble. I try hard and force a smile. Oh, thanks. I appreciate your concern and all. Yeah, they are pretty shitty. Hey! Language, kiddo! Sorry. Also, tell Carl his flies down. He looks like a damn fool. I see Carl stiffen, quickly reaching down and fumbling with the zipper, his neon orange Superwolf boxers visible through his fly. Karen just sighs. I feel my phone buzz within my pocket. I step off the bus beside Carl and the doors shut behind me, Karen heading back toward the freeway. It gets dark so much earlier now that summer is over. Echo isn't exactly a major township. The area is deemed a census-designated place, so we don't get streetlights. Carl watches the bus fade off into the distance before pulling out his phone.
Can't wait until I get my own car and license.
He starts texting.
Letting my parents know that you're coming over. We should troll around on that 3D Virtue Chat game again tonight. I spent some money and got myself this big luchador avatar, except I gave him big old breasts. He's called Mamaria.
He looks up at me with a smirk before turning and walking. How much did he spend? I follow, pulling out my own phone. Was texting my aunt. Miss sent to you. Oh.
I don't know. I was just grabbing what I needed. $15 maybe?
That's a lot for one of those kind of games, especially just for clothing. Any news on what's up with Jazz?
Well, the luchador mask I wanted was one of the premium items, so it costed the most. Everything else was dirt cheap. Every single girl in that game uses the same hair. The long curly blonde one that costs like $1.
No idea.
At least, they say they're girls. I'm just trying to be unique. Otherwise, what's the point? It is a social role-playing game. Why risk getting ignored?
I'm gonna head to her house in a bit.
I actually have another account with a character that's more normal looking.
I was going to after work. Her tit-dirt parents have been cunty as of late. You can if you want, but doubt your pansy self can handle Jer if he's there.
I made him after you left last time.
I don't care if him and Clint are there.
He's like this big primate-looking dude with burn scars everywhere and this kind of albino-y face.
Look, don't know if I'm supposed to tell you this, but Leo is going to this party thing tonight. You should go too. Or not, I don't care.
I had the idea for the character sort of based off a dream I had once.
A party? Not an echo, right? What is it for, the election?
Anyway, I went to a lot of the in-game hotspots at first. A lot of the stuff you and I saw when we were messing around.
It's for Day of the Dead. That's today. A bunch of jocks and townie types are going to be there. Route 65 at Parsons Manufacturing.
It is sort of like you said, that most of the people there are just middle-aged housewives who can barely type a sentence. But then I sort of went off-grid, I guess you'd call it? Like the spots that aren't advertised on the destination finder. I started finding a lot of weird shit.
Leo didn't mention it when I saw him. You going?
Like weirder than the shit we were making ironically, yeah? There are these places which look like more real-life houses, not the usual fantasy exotic stuff. Just people living in virtual families in these boring-ass looking homes, complete with framed photos of screenshots of their characters. I got the impression that a lot of them were, like, foreign.
I just said I'll be working, and when I get off, I'm heading to Jasmine's. Fucking deduce, school paper boy.
I walked into this one flat with these two horse ladies in it. They had decorations with a Middle Eastern script everywhere, but they seemed normal enough.
I was just curious. Fuck you.
They had a TV item which just displayed a slideshow of photoshopped photos of them with a baby. When I started exploring the house, I ended up walking into this nursery room and they got really pissy. I thought about trolling, you know, and writing, "I eat the baby," and hopping up and down on the crib, but I don't know. It just felt like this weird mix of awkward and sad. Chase? Are you listening?
Carl is standing in front of me with a concerned expression on his face. It takes me a moment to respond. Yeah, just texting Flynn.
He's actually responding to you?
Yeah, I know. I look up the street, Carl's house sitting in its amber glowing glory atop the hill slope. Apparently there's a party happening tonight. Carl raises an inquisitive brow.
Like, here or in general?
I'm not sure what you mean by in general, but yeah, around here. It's for Day of the Dead. Leo and I think maybe Flynn got invited.
What? They didn't mention it to me at all, and I asked them to their faces if they had any plans.
I shrug. Flynn made it sound like it was mostly just Peyton people coming out here.
Yeah, but it is weird they wouldn't mention that. That sounds about like the most exciting thing that will happen around here for months.
Carl looks off to the side, shifting his posture some.
I'd rather just stay home and play Virtue with you anyway. But seriously, what the fuck?
The idea that two of our closest friends were keeping this a secret did make me feel pretty shitty. On top of all the other sensations of general shittiness I feel right now. It's at the Parsons Manufacturing Building. You know, off Route 65?
That's sort of in the ass end of nowhere for a party. Maybe it's like a rave or something?
I shrug again. I think we should go. Carl blinks, his expression akin to as if I just asked him to rub his horns.
Dude.
He lets out a little huff, rubbing the back of his head.
First of all, we weren't invited. Second, it's the middle of nowhere. Third, isn't Day of the Dead for like...
He pulls his paw away from his beanie long enough to swirl it around in gesticulation as he tries to phrase this right.
Latin folk? My blood's as apple pie as it gets, dude.
Alright, first, Leo was there, so I don't see him not getting us in. Though it was weird he didn't invite us in the first place. Second, we live in the middle of nowhere. Anything local happening is technically in the middle of nowhere. Which still doesn't make it any more safe. Third, well, I don't know. I assume nothing too culturally sensitive is taking place in an abandoned factory? Which won't save us from sticking out like a sore thumb. Carl exhales through flared nostrils, lolling his head up as if being throttled by how much of a bad idea this is.
Dude.
He looks back down at me, a taut frown upon his muzzle.
I don't know. I guess I'm kinda curious. Worst case, we stop in, smack Leo, and then make like Flynn's fetish and scat.
Best case, we stop in, smack Leo when they have food.
I'd rip your tail off for a cheese quesadilla right now.
Don't do that.
My phone buzzes in my grip.
You're welcome. I gotta go. Try not to suck too much cock on your way there.
Ugh, so it begins. That's good advice from Flynn. I don't know if you're gonna hold out the whole way though.
Glancing over with a start, I realize that Carl is leering over my shoulder, squinting at my phone. Christ! I exhale, turning my phone's screen off. Yeah, I'll try my best. Carl lets out a brief, breathy bit of laughter before pulling out his phone. Lying to your parents' time?
Yup, your fault too. What should I say?
That you're hanging out at my house. Before we go, though, I wanted to check up on Jazz. I see Carl give me a bit of an inquisitive look, as if he isn't sure whether to protest this decision or not. It's on the way. Sort of. And she wasn't at school today. Flynn told me that her parents have been worse as of late.
Didn't know they could get much worse, dude. I know I may as well be the prep here, but they're like the definition of trailer trash.
He pauses, then quickly adds,
Not Jazz, though.
I nod some to the affirmative, then begin heading offward. I can see Carl looking a bit longingly toward his bedroom window, the aqua glows of his computer monitor visible from within. I have to admit that I also am kind of longing for some time on my laptop, though as I remember my situation from the morning, my heart sinks. My laptop's probably been taken from me, and my parents probably are going through all my files and internet history. My fists clench in inward cringe. I just need to try not to think about it. Crossing over into Jasmine's neighborhood, the surface of the road shifts from asphalt to dirt. While Stecco's pavement is laden with alligator cracks and crumbling edges, the dirt road looks even worse. Each step we take kicks up a plume of dust, the sediment covering the road's top loose and sand-like. The clopping of Carl's hooves has been muffled, though, making everything seem sort of tranquil. Which is odd, because hanging out with Carl is usually not something I consider a tranquil experience. Maybe the better term for it is eerie. I can see the faded masonry of the abandoned school building up ahead of the bend, the grass around it pale and dormant in the November chill. There aren't too many other buildings around beside it, though a few junked cars, cinder blocks, and steel barrels can be seen beside the road. Flynn calls this part of Echo Tetanus Alley.
Dude, I usually don't even brave coming around here in the daytime. This is kind of...
He gestures about with a limp flail instead of finishing a sentence. This is clearly out of his comfort zone, though I honestly think anything outside Carl's bedroom could be considered as such. You never walk to Jasmine's house at night?
Never without, like, Leo or something.
I nod. I get it.
If someone comes running at me with a syringe, I'm using you as a meat shield.
You smoke meth. You don't usually inject it.
If somebody comes running at me with a meth pipe, I'm using you as a meat shield.
I let out a half-amused grunt, keeping wary of my surroundings. There's no wind, so the mesquite and sagebrush are static still. We walk quietly for a bit, but as we reach the schoolhouse, Carl breaches the silence.
People around here hate me, dude.
I turn to look at him, the ram's face devoid of expression and his gaze distant. Well, Jeremy and Clint are just vocal about it. The rest just hate everybody, I think.
No, like, you heard what Karen was saying, right? How she sounded like there was some collective simmering spite under the surface?
Well, that's just...
Don't say that's just Karen, because I hear it in other places too, dude.
You're a spoiled fat rich kid. That's an easy target.
My parents sell fucking ice cream. How can you hate the ice cream family?
The ram waves his arms about before letting them flop ragdoll-like at his sides. I pause, hesitating on my response for a moment. Then it comes to me. Maybe they're just intolerant. I wait a beat. Lactose intolerant. Carl rolls his head back and lets out a surprisingly loud groan. Blinking, I hold up a finger to my muzzle. Shh, you're being noisy. I see the ram visibly recoil, increasingly self-aware. He sinks back into himself, dipping his paws into his pockets. Carl is really different when he talks to me in comparison to when he's at school around others. He's all quiet and such at lunch or in between classes, but if it's just us hanging out, he can be kind of a spaz. It's because of your ancestors, right? The town founder and whatnot?
Yeah.
He enters abruptly, looking sidelong. I think my scolding may have upset him. You know, it's a wonder that is such a thing around here.
Sodomy and mass murder have a way of sticking around.
Which one's worse, right? I say that in a bit more of a forced, playful tone than I intended. Carl looks over at me, then shrugs.
Depends on who you ask.
I look back at the abandoned school. Something about it always gave me a weird feeling. Carl and I hadn't been inside since 4th grade, now that I think about it. We arrive outside Jasmine's house, the square stucco structure dwarfed by the 3-story school next door. I can hear some scraping noises coming from inside, like wooden dining chairs pushed across tile floor. As I walk toward the door, I see Carl stop out of the corner of my eye. Looking back, I see he's frozen in place, his green eyes flicking from the entryway to me.
You know they don't like me, dude. Can you handle this?
I sigh, deciding it isn't worth arguing over. He's kind of right, too, I guess. You going home?
No, I'm just gonna chill out here.
He leans back a bit, teetering on the edge of the road and the little bit of gravel in front of the house. You look real inconspicuous, man.
Thanks.
Do you know what inconspicuous means?
Well endowed.
Jesus. I throw up my hands and make my way to the door, knocking 3 times. Carl, meanwhile, ambles off in the direction of the old school, out of sight. The skidding inside stops. Within a couple seconds, the door flings open, outward, so I'm nearly knocked on my ass. I'm instantly greeted by the smell of stale beer and the sound of football with the volume up too high. The sight of errant plastic bags and food containers scattered about tangerine shag carpet just completes the mood, really. A stout, fat Finnick fox stands before me, his eyes wide. He stares, though without meeting my gaze. It's as if he's looking right through me. Overall, Jasmine's dad looks like hell. However, he blinks some and refocuses, narrowing his eyes at me and dusting off his shirt. "Chase?" he rumbles. "Hey, yeah, is Jazz home?" Inside, I see a head peek from around the corner, the fur too splotchy to be Jasmine's. Jeremy. "Fuck off, Chase!" His voice is laden with derisive contempt. Jasmine's dad doesn't even react. It is bizarre how Jeremy never seems to get disciplined. "She's in her room. Got chores she ain't done yet, so she can't go out and, play." He steps out of the way and moves back to the kitchen, where a plate of convenience store nachos and cheese sits. He reaches down to grab a chip, but ends up just sticking his paw into the hot, melted cheese. The old fox looks more confused than anything, his brow furrowed. 3 seconds pass before he actually grabs a chip. Meanwhile, Jeremy is still hard-eyeing me from over the couch cushion. I realize now that he's only in his underwear. Tighty-whities, too. With that, I fast-walk my way to the end of the hall, stepping over some nasty-looking stains. I'm guessing Jasmine's mom is in the bathroom, so I give that a wide berth as well. As I'm about to turn and knock on Jazz's door, I realize that it's completely open, the door taken off the hinges and resting against the wall nearby. Awkwardly, I knock on the wooden doorframe and clear my throat. Jazz? Chase? She states my name with a matter-of-fact tone. I take that as my all good to enter and step inside. Excuse me for a bit. Her room is rather cramped, adorned with an old, metal-frame single bed, a cedar desk, and the house's hot water heater. A stack of books and manga completely fills the space under her bed, which serves as some sort of makeshift book nook. Her desk is surprisingly neat, and I recognize a biology textbook from school open on top. Everything is fairly tidy, neat, and organized, but it still seems somewhat cozy. It is girly as all hell, truly, but it feels like a sanctuary in contrast to the rest of the house, even with the constant rumble of the hot water heater. Jasmine is turned away from me, sorting something in her backpack. I see her rub her face. Your, door moved. Not on its own. What do you need? After a sufficient amount of face rubbing, she turns to face me, a curious yet expectant look in her eyes. She almost appears as if she's sizing me up, but I think that's just the way her face is. You weren't at school today, and I just wanted to check up on you and whatnot. She turns, moving to close her biology book on the desk and sliding it into her backpack.
Well, that's nice of you.
Her tone is abrupt, and it leaves me feeling sort of awkward and foolish. I guess?
Hey, can I borrow your cell phone for a second?
I hesitate. What for?
Don't worry, I'm not going to go through your text messages or browsing history. Just need to message someone.
I slowly pull my phone from my pocket, though I'm definitely a little wary of handing it over. That doesn't stop Jasmine from turning hastily and plucking it from my fingertips. Sly fox. She swipes through and I hear the telltale click-clacking of the touch keys. Who are you texting?
You don't worry about that, and I won't worry about this recently saved images button on here.
Jazz! She narrows her gaze at something, the white light from the device illuminating her features.
You can have a seat if you'd like.
I want to know what's going on.
Like, in general, or...
Regarding you not being in school today, and your door being absent.
It isn't absent, Chase. It's just against the wall outside.
I'm starting to actually get angry at this point. If you don't want to talk about it, then just say you don't want to talk about it. Quit trying to make me look stupid for caring. Her blue eyes flick from the screen to me for a brief moment, then back down again.
There's nothing to talk about. Nothing out of the ordinary around here. Just an average day on Cloud 9.
I see her mash her thumb in rapid succession against what looks like the delete button, and then she begins to type again.
How are you doing, though?
I feel my raised jowls go loose at the question. She looks up from my phone, resting it face down on her thigh as she awaits my answer. Her shift to concern is a little jarring, though this is what I came for really, isn't it? As much as I would hate to admit it, her lack of domestic bliss is such a common thing at this point, it's become a bit of a trite topic. It's horrible here, but everybody knows that, especially Jazz. I guess she doesn't need anyone reminding her of it. I'm gay. She makes an acknowledging frown, then takes a seat at the edge of her bed.
I didn't know that was a state of doing, but alright. That is... certainly something to talk about.
Catching Jasmine off guard is a completely rare occurrence, and she's given pause as she gently rolls my phone in her hands. It vibrates once, but she makes no move to answer it.
Well, I had my suspicions.
You did?
You frill your arms when you walk sometimes, and your voice has a slight Valley Girl twang to it when you become excited.
I look on, visibly mortified at this revelation. I did not know that.
There's something about your face, too. I can't quite describe it.
My jaw drops. Are you saying I have a gay face? She purses her lips, thinking for a moment.
Perhaps to me, in a way. Have you confided this information about you to anyone else?
I shake my head. No, you're the first, but...
I'm flattered that you came to me with this, Chase. I really am.
She smiles lightly.
If you want me to keep this a secret between us until you're ready to share with the others, that is something I can do.
I bite the inside of my cheek, then slowly move to sit beside Jasmine on the bed, holding my tail back so my oily fur doesn't musty up the covers. My parents know, so I guess it doesn't matter now.
Oh?
They caught me looking up gay, not safe for worky stuff on the internet before school today.
Oh. You have your own laptop for that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to take that away from you?
Well, yeah, they've grounded me from it for much less.
But you didn't do anything wrong, technically. It is only natural that you want to explore this sort of thing. I actually have had some manga here that cover topics similar to this.
I see her briefly glance to her absent door.
Most of them are written by women, though, so I don't know how applicable they would even be to someone like you.
I find myself squeezing the end of my tail in my fists. I know I look a bit pathetic doing it, but it calms me for some reason. It's just... shitty having them find out this way. I'm gonna be equated to, like, sexual deviancy in their heads from here on.
Were you masturbating at the time?
I nearly wring off the end of my tail I squeeze so tight, my eyes widening. Yeah. She audibly hums, looking back down at the phone in her hands.
I can see why this would make you so uneasy, and even frightened. But this is your parents we're talking about, Chase. I've known them since I was 7 years old. They're good people, understanding. Also, you have a new voicemail from them.
I'm aware.
Oh. Would you like to listen to it?
No, I'm good, really.
You're obviously not, Chase. I know you have your therapist to help you deal with your hallucinations and sleep paralysis, but you should broach this topic as well. I found that building up lots of negative emotions like this tends to attract more bad things. You know what I mean.
I stiffen with a startle as I hear knocking on the window. Glancing over, I see 2 large pairs of horns silhouetted against the lower edge of the window pane. Jazz looks to have been clutching her legs tightly, though at seeing what I do, she relaxes as well. Carl wanted to wait outside.
I understand.
Yeah. I look at the carpet between my feet, then slowly rise to a stand. Leo's apparently at some party on Route 65.
He didn't tell me about it.
Yeah, he kept it a secret from us. We're gonna go check it out. Would you like to come? I see her knead her knuckles against the comforter, her tongue pressed against her 2 front teeth.
I wouldn't be able to get away for long, Chase. For now, it's better if I stay put.
She reaches down, typing a few more things into my phone before handing it back to me. I see the flash of messenger history deleted upon my screen for a split second before it goes back to the usual background. Looking down at her, I raise my eyebrow slightly. Thanks. I hope you get your door back.
Mm-hmm. I hope you get your laptop back.
She nods politely, and I make my exit. As I'm walking through the hall, I spy Jasmine's father still hunched over his nachos. Jeremy, meanwhile, is still on the couch, which I'm realizing is also his bed. He scowls at me as he catches me looking, the fox making a crude gesture before rolling over toward the television. I think he mutters another fuck off, but I'm not really listening. I'm honestly surprised Carl accepted going along to this party. His social anxiety is pretty bad at school. Maybe it's just that kind of night. I walk alongside him, still mulling over what Jasmine had said.
Can't wait till I get my license and car. I mentioned that already, yeah?
Yes.
Route 65 is like 3 miles away.
You can get your fetlocks toner ready for the dance floor, though. I see Carl's posture stiffen some at that prospect, his bright green eyes looking to the asphalt beneath us.
You don't actually think there's gonna be dancing, is there? Like the movies and shit?
I shrug, something I've been doing a lot this night. Growing up in a town with less than 60 people has made what seems like a conventional teenage experience on TV seem utterly foreign. The closest our group of friends had to such were birthday parties with just us 6 and our folks. Leo's dad let us drink a can of beer once. I always imagined high school parties were just a bunch of kids sitting on couches and smoking weed. But this is Echo, so...
Meth?
Do you think Leo would go to a party where everyone smoked meth?
I didn't think Leo would go to a party and not tell us.
I pause, dipping my paws into my pockets. I wonder if Leo thinks we're not cool. Carl actually turns to look at me, then quickly averts his gaze to the ground.
Dude, I'd think that after all the shit we've been through, that wouldn't matter.
The serious statement from him takes me off guard, and I feel instantly guilty for broaching that topic. I nod solemnly, another long pause drifting between us. Yeah. Carl tells me more about 3D Virtue Chat and some girls he met on there as we walk. Girls being stated with quotation fingers each time. I had tried talking with guys online myself, though, like Carl, never with my real identity. I remember I was feeling lonely 2 months ago and posted a personal MM ad on the Peyton List website. 18-year-old Otter here looking for friend/mentor was the tagline. I included a cropped and photoshopped picture of myself at the Peyton Rec Center pool, my face blurred. Since I went through puberty a couple years ago, I was pretty sure I could pass for 18 if my face was hidden. I was wrong. My post was taken down and I got a few emails from administrators asking all sorts of questions. It really hasn't been my best past few months. And on that note, we're gonna leave off here for tonight. Next time, we will finish off Route 65. I told you it wasn't very long. But until then, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Bye!